Welcome back everybody to another MOTOBOB video. Now today I'm due to take this BMW R1300R press bike back to BMW HQ and swap it over for the R1300RS. I thought it'd be a brilliant opportunity to do a bit of a comparison of the two and to find out where the strengths of each lie and which is better for what kind of riding. So join me as I take this one back and I'll talk a little bit about what I've enjoyed about it. We'll compare the two at BMW HQ and then on the way back we'll talk about what I think of the RS.
I think the biggest change on this new R1300R is the way that they've made it more aggressive, more sporty, a bit more dynamic, and they've done that in a couple of ways. One, it's got to be said, is the looks, which are a lot more angular, a lot more modern looking, partly, I guess, as a result of some of the structural changes versus the 1250 version. So the frame, the engine, of course they're gonna change the aesthetic of the bike as well, but yeah, also the headlight, the front end, the paint jobs that are on offer, all of the bodywork. Well yeah, it ties together for a bike that looks a bit more interesting, exciting perhaps than the 1250R, and so for me that's a big tick. On top of that though, you do have some much more meaningful changes to the way this bike feels out on the road. And I think one of the most impactful is the ergonomics. You're a little bit more over the front. You feel more connected to the front end, and that's mainly down to the fact that they fitted it with these flatter bars. It might not be quite so, upright and comfy as the previous Gen 1250, but I think it is balanced enough for, all-round riding. But when you are riding that a little bit quicker, which is perhaps what this bike is more so intended for versus a sports tourer like the RS, well, it does give you that engaging feeling, and it actually makes for a surprisingly good bike when it comes to carving through corners. I mean, it is a little on the weighty side, let's say. You wouldn't necessarily compare it to a truly sporty naked style of bike, but it grips phenomenally well. It's extremely planted as well, and so I'm expecting good things from the RS also. Now, generally, BMW do properly spec up these press bikes to really show you, everything in the accessories catalogue, and this one has the dynamic pack, which means it gets their latest and greatest in terms of dynamic, electronically adjustable suspension. I think the key new feature is the variable spring rate, which is something they first used on the GS, but of course having the telelever front end on the GS, it means you've got a monoshock both at the rear as usual but also on the front, whereas this bike uses a more typical telescopic fork for more conventional handling. And so I think this is the first time they've ever used that variable spring rate approach on what is, generally a regular fork. It's one of my favourite things about this bike, actually, to be honest, the dynamic suspension pack. It can go from something very firm and planted for corners like these, but then also if you do want to soften it up for straight line cruising, well, you can do that in the touch of a button, and it goes quite a long way between the two. There's a good amount of variation, so it really does feel like a very versatile bike. It can go from firm and sporty right down to soft and squishy, and I guess that's exactly what this bike was intended to be, a good all-round roadster. The other new feature for this R1300R that I think is one of the standout features is of course the 1300 Boxer Twin engine. Now you'll find it in plenty of models. It started in the GS, then the GS Adventure. You've got this bike, the RS, and the full-on RT Tourer. And again, it's a really versatile engine. And so ideal for this kind of bike. It makes more peak power now at 145 horses. It feels a little happier revving up as well, because I think they've made it more over square than it was before. But at the same time, it preserves all that low-end torque that makes a Boxer Twin so usable. It's got plenty in the mid-range as well. And also, despite making it a bit more peppy and a bit more sporty, they haven't sacrificed too much in terms of fuel economy, because it's got their shift cam, variable valve timing and valve lift system. So it's still decent on fuel. And of course, a bit of straight line motorway work is realistically a large share of what the other bikes in this 1300 lineup are going to be doing. So I guess that... nearly got him. Yeah, I guess that's very much an important facet of the 1300 Boxer Twin, to be able to get the distance in without, you know, chugging through too much fuel. I guess my only criticism of this bike when I published the full review a month or so back was that some of the tech, like the front collision warnings and also the automatic hill hold, felt a little bit invasive to me, a little bit too much. But as I said at the time, you could either not spec it up if you didn't want that sort of feature set when you actually decided what accessories and packs to add. But even if you did pick up a bike that had front collision warnings and automatic hill hold control, well, you can sort of play with it in the settings and get it more so dialed in to how you want it to behave. So fair play to BMW. They've built in enough customization to suit a wide range of tastes. Now, before we get on to the key differences between these two bikes, I'd just like to say a massive thanks to Louis Moto for supporting the channel and sponsoring this video. Louis Moto are one of the biggest European retailers of motorcycle clothes and accessories and parts, but they also ship to the UK with fast shipping and free returns. That means you can get hold of some of the best known brands in biking, but on top of that, they offer a wide selection of their own brand products, which in my experience of using them over the past few years, offer exceptional value for money. For long days in the saddle like this, I pretty much always turn to a touring jacket, as you never know what the weather will do, and so today I'm wearing their Vanucci VAJ5, which has plenty of vents if it does get a bit toasty, but also you've got the option to run the wind and waterproof membrane and the thermal lining, both of which are included. That means from cold wet weather to hot sunny days and anything in between, there's a perfect combo of layers with this jacket, and so I thoroughly recommend checking out the links down in the description below to find out more. In fact, there's a whole bunch of great touring gear from their brands like tool rolls and battery-powered pumps. And so a massive thanks again to Louis Moto for sending this stuff out to test. And with that, let's get back to the bikes to see how they compare.
Now look, with these two bikes effectively being like sister models, there is plenty in common. The engine, the majority of the frame, the suspension, the brakes, the wheels, and also a lot of the tech and accessories that you can layer on top. But then again, put them side by side and they really do look like quite different bikes. A lot of that is down to the fairing that you get on this RS, which does help to give it a bit more of a sporty aesthetic, with a front end that's got a lot more in common with something like an S1000RR sports bike. Then on top of that, you've got the windscreen, which hopefully is going to make this the bike out of the two that would be preferable for long distances. And there are a couple of options for different sizes or tints of screen in the accessories catalogue, so I'll have to do a little bit of research to figure out if this is standard fit. Then when you look in the cockpit, you'll notice a difference in the handlebars as well, although I wouldn't say it's quite as pronounced as with the 1250 versions, because they've made the bars lower on the R. But still, these clip-on-ish style handlebars on the RS are going to sit a little bit narrower, a touch more turned in, perhaps slightly further forward and lower, and so I hope this is also the bike that feels a little bit more engaging when you are riding quicker, because you're more tucked in and over the front. As for the saddle, well, it's only 5mm different. You might assume that with it being a more sporty model, they'll get you up at the bum as well to get you over the bars. But yeah, 5mm is all the difference is, and you do have plenty of options in the accessories catalogue, so I believe you can go as high as 845 on this bike and as low as 790, so there really is quite a wide range. The R, just for reference, is 810 as standard, and you can go up to 840 and down to 785. So it's the same, you know, range of movement, just around a center point that's 5mm lower. Interestingly, I was comparing the geometry of the two bikes on the spec sheets before I set off, just to be thorough about the key differences. This bike is a little longer in the wheelbase, which you might think they've done to give it some extra stability in a straight line if you're doing that touring kind of work. So yeah, how that plays out on the road, we'll find out in a moment. The only other two differences of note that are worth mentioning would be the price. This one starts 500 quid cheaper. Understandable, I think you'd say, given that it's got the extra bodywork and fairing, and also it does come in 6 kilograms heavier. Again, I think you'd expect that with this extra bodywork.
Right, now of course I cut out the motorway bit of this ride because you probably wouldn't hear a word I'm saying, but certainly for that kind of riding, obviously this windscreen makes a massive difference in terms of how comfortable those stints are. It is manually adjustable, so you do have to grab it and push it down. In this down position, it's not far off like a naked bike with a fly screen. Up though, which is a little bit tricky, there's a bit of a knack to it. Well, it's not going to compete with an RT. It doesn't give you loads of coverage, but what it does allow you to do is tuck down behind it, and I will say when you get your head down there into the bubble, it's exceptionally quiet, and so I found this bike very, very comfortable for the 2 hours-ish that I was just on the motorway. As for the ergonomics, well, like I was saying when the bikes were there together at BMW, I don't think the bar position is vastly different now. With the 1250s, I rode them back to back in Spain last year or the year before, and there was a big difference, whereas now I just don't think it's as pronounced. These just feel ever so slightly sportier, although both bikes are available with a higher bar accessory, so if you do want to go up on either of the two bikes, you've got that option. And I think it's about 100 and something quid, which, yeah, one could argue it's a lot for a handlebar. But on the flip side, if it gives you a lot more comfort, then it is money well spent. Seat height, not making a vast difference. Foot pegs feel a little bit higher, but it does have the option 719 adjustable pegs on, so maybe they're in a slightly different position. And also, the foot controls are adjustable too, so I can feel there's a bit of a difference there. But really, I think the riding position isn't as different as I perhaps thought it was going to be. The thing that I was really interested to compare, though, was the handling with that slight difference in geometry. And I think, on reflection, I mean, they are in the same ballpark, but I just found the R to be that little more compact and maneuverable, whereas this does feel like the slightly larger, slightly longer bike, which it is. Both are big bikes though, both relatively stretched out, so very stable through corners. But if I had to pick from the two for a quick blast, an enjoyable, quick sporty ride, without too much concern for long distance comfort, like I say, then realistically I think I probably would be turning to the R1300R. That said though, you know, for pretty much anything else, you know, this RS probably has the extra versatility.
I think this one is a little bit of a head versus heart decision, because on the heart side, the R1300R is the one that just excites me a bit more. It's got the looks that I think are just maybe a bit cooler. Maybe I just generally prefer the naked look anyway. But also it's the one that is a tiny bit more fun to ride once you're off the motorway. And so it is the bike out of the two that I think more so just tickles my fancy. That said, if I were to spend the extra few £100 on this one, with the windscreen, the extra bodywork, and also the fact that it probably more so visually suits luggage, And it probably suits some of those touring biased rider aids as well that you can fit to this bike, like active cruise control. Well, I think realistically it's the bike out of the two that I get a lot more use out of, because it's much more suited to those long days in the saddle, and yet it can still do everything that the R does almost exactly as well. It is genuinely a tough decision between these two bikes, but one thing is for sure, I'm very much looking forward to putting a few more miles in on this RS to get our full review ready, so do keep your eyes peeled for that one in the next few weeks.
As always, I'd love to know which bike you'd pick, so do let me know down in the comments below, and I'll leave my full review of the R1300R on the screen now, in case you missed it, so you can get all of the details of what I thought about it. Do hit subscribe for more of the latest news and reviews right here on MOTOBOB. A massive thanks for watching today, and I'll catch you in the next video.